excuse me.
No, you're not. It's not taping. This is Ruth Yesair. This is August 24th, 1984. I'm interviewing Mrs. Maude Ryan, who lives at
18 Moody Street.
In Byfield.
Mass.
And when were you born?
New report.
When?
When? Oh, 1892. 1980. No, 1892.
1892.
That's recording my mistakes.
That's all right. That's all right. We all make mistakes. Now, can you tell me, when did you come to Byfield?
Well, I must have been a baby.
Did you live here on Moody Street or somewhere else in
Not
Byfield?
the first time.
Where did you live?
I really don't know, but they called it over by the Sand Hills.
Where are the Sandhills?
Well, I think it's over one around Warren Street, somewhere over. I don't know just where it was.
Yes. What are your first memories of Byfield?
Well, I remember going to visit school one day.
Who was the teacher?
And Mrs. Charlotte Rogers.
Mrs. Charlotte Rogers.
And she lived in that way.
Yes.
And then she married a man by the name of Schenk. You might have her name by that.
Yes.
And she was always a first grade teacher.
First grade teacher.
Mm-hmm. And we had long desks.
Was this in the yellow school? Was this in the yellow school?
No, it was another building, and that was moved over where the Gospel Hall is now, and they used that.
What happened
I don't
to that
know where
building?
that went.
Oh.
But I don't remember. But I do know that the Gospel Hall built a new building.
I don't quite understand where this school was. This is interesting.
The school was where the yellow one is now. It was upstairs and downstairs and upstairs.
Why did they build the yellow school? Just because they needed a
Well, I
larger...
imagine they needed more room.
What did that school...
We had a pot-belly stove.
Oh, tell me how it looked like inside.
Well, I remember the teacher having a desk, and we, of course, were all in front of her. And there were long seats.
Long seats.
Sometimes there were two in a seat.
Uh-huh.
And
how many rooms were in that school? How many rooms?
There was upstairs and downstairs.
8 classes?
Yes. I went from there to Pearly Free School.
Over in Georgetown?
Georgetown.
That was your high school?
Mm. I went there 2 years. I didn't graduate.
Where did you get your water? We were told there was a well right in front of that school.
Yes, there's a well.
No, there was at the school.
Oh, at the school? I don't even remember where the toilets are.
Oh.
Yes, we had a room, and there were hooks, and we hung our clothes up on the wall. That the water, I don't know.
And you went to that school and then went to Pearly Free School.
Mm.
So when you were in Byfield, the yellow school, the Byfield school, was not built?
No.
Have you any idea what happened to that building?
No, I think Roma might know, because she went there.
Yes,
She attended there for services.
That's very interesting. Do you... We're trying to track down some information about a Byfield cheese factory. Have you ever heard of a Byfield cheese factory over by Wheelwright's Corner?
Byfield what?
Cheese factory.
No, I don't. No, I really don't. I saw that in a paper bunch, and I don't know.
You don't know anything about it. How about...
I remember where the post office now, they used to make shoes up there.
They did. Did you ever go up there?
No.
No.
No, but you had to go by it go to the post office, which was up where the, I guess, Richdale store.
Did you ever remember a watering trough across the street, well, fairly near where Frankie Witham used to live? You don't remember that. We were told that there were woods behind the present post office and a brook.
Oh, yes, it was.
Can you describe it to me?
Yes, there was woods, and there used to be there was a path. People walked, especially children, walked through there to go to the store, where there's a block or a large building there right along by the Gospel Hall.
Yes.
There was a store there.
There was
and William Pearson, you'd say, have it.
I see. What was the store like inside? What did he sell?
Grocery store.
Regular grocery store. Mm-hmm. We were told there were quite a few stores in town.
Yes. There was where the Richdale, where they sell ice cream and like that. There was a grocery store there. That's where Elfrida and Harold was.
That's right. What was that store like inside?
Well, I don't know what it's like now, but
when you went to shop there, what was it like inside? Everything in barrels?
Well, it was pickles in barrels, yes, and there were boxes with glass doors with cookies, and if we want cookies, a pound of mixed cookies, he'd take some out of each one.
That was Harris Rogers?
No, Charles Genie had it first.
I see.
That I remember.
Yes.
And then Harold's wife's father had it, and then they had it.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember there was a store also across the street near where Frankie Witham lives?
From the one I was just talking about?
Yes. Just down below on the Georgetown side, just diagonally across. No? Can you take me from where you lived all the way through town and close your eyes and remember what it looked like? Describe it. The trees, the houses, the street was unpaved.
Well, there weren't as many houses on the street as there are now. And across from the Davises, there was a house that's not there now. Between the halls and 9 meters, there was a small house.
What did the center...
But on the street, there was none beyond there.
What did the center of the town look like? What did the center of the town look like?
Well, almost like it does now. Only different, like the post office, a different color. And I remember Mr. Hill used to work in there. I think he was relation to Charlotte Cook. She might know more about it.
And this is where the present post office is?
Where the present post office is. They used to make shoes there years ago.
What did where was the previous post office? The early post office?
Up where, I don't know the name of the place. Where's the place up by the Richdale?
That's the little mini mart?
Is that what that was a store. And the next where they sell beer and like that.
Yes.
That was where the post office was. And we had boxes. Well, they do now, but it was different.
Yes. Who was the postmaster, do you remember?
Lyman Pearson's the one I remember.
Uh-huh. What did he look like?
Well, he was lame. He lived up on Forest Street. And I only knew one son of his family. I never knew the rest. Fred Pearson, his name was.
Do you remember any of the old veterans? How did you get to the Pearly School? How did you get to the Pearly School?
Oh, car, electric car.
Electric car. Where would you take it? Where would you get it?
Right by the corner, right where the post office is now.
Right there. Mm-hmm. How long would it take you? 10 minutes or so? How long would it take you?
Oh, maybe 10 minutes or 15.
What would they do in bad weather?
Well, just the same. We wore leggings, buttoned-up leggings. We walked through the snow. We went snowy days. They don't now.
No, they certainly don't now.
And they used to plow out with 4 horses.
And how did they do that?
They had a long sled.
A sled? And did they roll it?
No, the horses pulled it along. 4 horses.
That must have been very interesting to see. Mm-hmm. We were told you could get most everything delivered in town. We were told you could get most everything delivered in town. There was a fishman?
With what?
There was a fishman?
Yes, we used to have a fishman go by. His name was Courier, Mr. Courier. And then there was another man previous to that. I don't know his name. And he used to sell smoked herring and saltfish and like that. You buy a whole one or a half of one.
How did they keep it cold?
Well, now like me, my folks would put things down cellar. I don't know about the fish, but canned goods that she preserved. She had a closet, and they didn't freeze. We had a coal bin in the corner.
Was this the house you were brought up in?
That's the house I remember. This is over 100 years old.
It's over 100 years old. Mm-hmm. Who built it?
I know it's over 120 because I got some of the deeds.
Wonderful.
I got some of the old deeds.
Wonderful. What did the town look like when the roads were unpaved? We were told there were beautiful flowers in town. It was a pretty spot.
The pretty part. I always admired Mrs. Grace Litch.
Yes.
Her residence. She always had pretty flowers there.
Yes. And do you remember Lydia Thompson?
I don't know about the town doing anything.
Do you remember Lydia Thompson? Lydia Davis Thompson?
Yes, I remember them. They lived up on Main Street.
They had a beautiful garden, I was told.
I don't remember.
She was a writer, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was a smart woman.
Mm-hmm.
Nice people. People stayed home more then.
Yes.
You know. And my mother, she was a dressmaker and she made our clothes. Oh, you don't want that. Clothes. And we felt pretty nice.
Yes. Do you remember Miss Torrey? I think many people...
Yes, I didn't have her, but she was very nice. She was sort of a missionary lady. And there were some poorer people over back and down that way going toward West Newbury. Once, when you turn here, see, it isn't very far when the town line into West Newbury.
That's right.
And you turn right, and one side of the street is West Newbury and one side is Byfield.
Yes.
I'd been told that.
Yes.
And there was girls and boys come from there to go to school.
I've heard she was quite an influence in town.
You remember Charlie Rogers? He lived to be 90-something, 6, I think. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I'd get a school picture now, but I don't know just where it is.
That's wonderful. Did you ever attend any of the minstrel shows they used to have in town?
Yes, I was in one.
What did you do in it? What did you do in it?
Oh, I forget who the boy was, but we were Jack Spratt and his wife.
I heard they were very popular.
No. Me?
No, the minstrel shows were
yes,
popular.
They were. I wish they would come back.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of fun in them.
Yes, yes.
You couldn't recognize some people or they'd black up, the face.
Who were the local stars?
Oh, I don't really know. I can't remember.
Were they to raise money for, like, the fire department or just for entertainment?
Oh, we didn't have a fire department.
What did you
They
rely
used to go
on?
with pail and brooms.
Really?
There was a house down there before that new one, and years ago when I was growing up, and it was empty, but the owner was there, and he went away. And later that afternoon, it was on fire, and I went out on top of the hill, my driveway, and I hollered, fire, fire! And they come over with water and brooms, pails and brooms. I don't know where they got the water. Probably, I don't know what they got.
So the neighbors had to put it out.
Yeah, and they, this isn't the recording. I hope I'm gone now.
Yes. Yes, well.
I'm the last one of 7.
Of 7?
7 children.
My goodness. Do you remember the woolen mills?
Oh, yes, that was the best, and the only place, I guess, where they made woolen blankets.
I've heard that people used to go in there and buy them.
Yes, they got a fire and they never established it again.
Any idea? Did you ever go to the fire?
No, too far to walk.
Uh-huh.
No, we had no electric lights. We didn't dare go out after dark.
Oh, you never did?
I'd go to church in the evening. After sleep, my father would come meet me, or my brother.
But if you went to the
I would be 17, 18.
then if you went to the minstrel shows, you would have somebody walk with you.
Well, my father was janitor of the hall.
Oh.
Because he belonged to the junior order.
Yes. Did you hear the band? They had a band, didn't they?
Yeah, and they were quite active. So.
What was your father's name?
Herbie.
Uh-huh. Did he ever tell you, Herbie what was his last name?
Herbie Sumner, Herbie S. Rogers.
Uh-huh. Did he ever tell you what Byfield was like when he was young?
I don't think he was up here when he was really young, unless after they were married, because he was born in Salem.
I see.
He came from Salem. But he had sisters and brother in Newburyport. Half-sisters.
Yes.
His mother was married twice.
Uh-huh. I see.
George Osborne in Newburyport was fire chief for a long time. That was his half-brother.
I see. I see. Do you remember any of the local characters in Byfield?
The local what?
Characters.
Not really. You mean someone special?
Somebody special from the past who might have influenced you or made an impression on you.
There was one.
What was he like?
Well, he would always say, well, you look as though you come right out of the top drawer.
Oh, he thought you dressed very nicely then.
Yeah. Well, we were kept clean.
Uh-huh.
We went out nights.
Yes. What did the people do for entertainment? Did you mostly have to come home and do chores?
Well, growing up, we never went anywhere, as I know, for entertainment. Only if church had something,
Did you participate in the Grange?
I didn't join the Grange. I only joined the Methodist Church.
Uh-huh. You still go to the Methodist Church?
Not now. I'm not able. I can't climb the steps.
Uh-huh.
I'm all in. I had to come out twice, so.
Oh, dear.
And everybody turns around, looks at you and wonders. And then a few of the people came over to see how I was and what was the matter. And so
the Methodist Church, that's a new building. The other one was moved, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was... I don't know really what happened to that. I can't recall it. I don't remember everything.
Yes. Was it during your time that the new one was built?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
I had a history of it, and that's too bad. 100 years ago, anyway.
Yes.
That I remember. Had to be, because I'm 92.
92. That's wonderful. You've seen a lot of changes.
Oh, yes. The people aren't as neighborly.
Well, I guess they're all many...
Mother there wouldn't be so much crying.
Yes, I think I agree
But
with you.
There's a different class of people come in
Yes.
Because it's a free country.
Yes.
But you know what I mean, is it?
Did you go to the firemen's parades?
Yeah, I tell you what made an impression on me was when we were children in the old school. Every Memorial Day they would have a barge.
A barge?
And sometimes it was horse-drawn, and we'd all go. We'd be dressed up, you know. That's when I remember my patent leather slippers and a white dress, and we'd ride over to the cemetery.
Where was the cemetery?
South Byfield Cemetery.
Uh-huh.
And we'd have a little song and like that over there at the cemetery.
Speeches.
And then we'd come back to the hall, and
this is a junior mechanics hall.
Carry food, and there'd be lunch. But it got so that people wasted the food, and they did away with it.
Oh, dear.
But that was nice then, because they'd have exercises in the hall.
Yes. And how were they organized?
How what?
How were they organized?
How were they organized? Well...
Like, what was the program?
Well, there would be singing, and the minister would offer prayer, and it was sort of a social-like.
Speeches?
And after that, they had, yes, there were different speakers.
Who were some of the speakers that you remember?
I can't remember now, but I remember the minister was always one, and some men from the junior order, they would speak, and sometimes children would have a little piece and then recite it.
Did you ever speak?
I don't remember. I don't think I did at Memorial. I don't think I did. I remember my first recitation or speech that I made over to the church, the Sunday school, and there was a group of us, and each one had a letter.
Yes.
And when we got through, when all of us got through speaking, it spelled the word Christian.
Oh, that's nice.
C-A, each one.
Yes.
And we'd have about 2 lines
Uh-huh.
for that letter, beginning with that letter.
Yes.
The word would begin with that letter.
Church was very important to the community.
Yes, it was then. The young people, I think, attended more. There wasn't so much rivalry in the town as there was jealousy.
Yes.
Something, I don't know what it is.
Yes. We were told that there was an ice cream parlor, too, in town. Was that a center of social activity?
I think I don't know if it's the right one or not, but the one I recall was Alice Rogers. We call her Alice Tim. It must have been Alice Timothy Rogers.
Where was that?
It was on Main Street, along there somewhere. And she sold ice cream, handmade ice cream.
Oh, it must have been delicious.
It was nice.
Yes. Mm-hmm. What other things could
there
you...
used to be, pardon me, there used to be, Johnny Cannifer used to come up even when I got older, and with an ice cream cart and sell bananas and ice cream, a lot of kids. And I'll tell you one thing that was impresses me. There used to be a man come with a little monkey.
A monkey?
On a chain or rope, and he'd have some kind of a musical instrument, and he would play that, and the monkey, he had a hat, and he had a little cup in his hand, and he'd go around to the people, put in money. We enjoyed that.
What fun. Did he come every summer? Or
in the summer.
Yes.
I think he probably was from a circus or something.
Uh-huh.
But that was cute.
Oh,
the monkey knew just what to do.
Yes.
And if he'd sit there on his haunches, you know, the man would pull his rope a little bit, and he'd go around with that cup.
How? That's the first time we've heard about the monkey.
Oh,
that's wonderful. Do you remember the circus?
Yes, I remember the circus. I don't know the circus here.
There was a circus that we were told that people from here would go down to Old Town, Parker Street.
I don't think we went much.
We were told one time that one of the big trains was relocated and had to go through Byfield. Do you remember any of the trains?
The train? Oh, yes. I missed them.
Yes.
Yes, they used to, see, I used to go to Newburyport, I think, quarter to 9, and then they'd come back at 11 and go to Boston. And then there was one around 4 and there one around 8 o'clock.
Do you remember how much it would cost to go to Newburyport?
Not on the train, I don't. You could go to Newburyport, working people, buy a book of tickets for the electric cars, and 10 days for $2.
10 days for $2. Both ways, round trip.
Yeah.
Do you remember Plum Island Hotel?
Oh, well, not exactly the hotel, but
how about the
we
pavilion?
used to go down to Plum Island and stay a week or 10 days. It was $1 a day.
Where would you stay?
We had Orange Rogers' cottage.
Yes. Where was that located?
Well, if you were going, you go down to Plum Island, you turn to go that way. Not Boston way. I don't know. I'm not good on directions, but we go. Well, you turn that way, and that would be left, of course. And it's up on the bank, and it's still standing, as far as I know.
Wonderful. And what did Plum Island look like?
Oh, well, it was not so many cottages, and I don't think the water came in so far as it does now. But I get pretty near drowned once.
How did you get drowned?
Well, we didn't have a bathing suit. I had an old Mother Hubbard dress.
Yeah.
And because my mother, she didn't go in. She was watching, of course. And a great big wave come. I can see it now. And I really was frightened. I screamed, and she grabbed me by the bottom of the dress and pulled me.
Well, you were saved.
So I never bothered the water anymore.
We were told you had to take all your supplies with you. There were no roads down there.
Well, a horse and a wagon we went with. We hired it, my father did. But we weren't rich by any means, but we did that every summer.
How nice.
For a good many years.
Oh, that's lovely.
Well, till they began to leave home.
Yes. And we
had more company than my mother said. I cook more and work harder here than I do at home.
You had to take everything down with you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have anything?
I don't think we took our dishes.
Did you have anything delivered there? Was there a fishman and a baker down there?
I think there was a store there, but I don't remember what they sold. There was a store there, because we used to go buy candy and ice cream, but they didn't have cones then.
I see. I see. So you would eat it out of a dish.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Do you remember the firemen's parades here in Byfield?
Yes, I remember them.
They were big events.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, do you think
they had a organization? Too many years ago. You probably heard of it. The Junior Order.
Yes. Was this strictly a social organization?
Well, they were the ones that used to run the carnival, carnival later, and then the firemen run it.
I see.
And I think the Junior Order had fairs, and well. Of course, we didn't always go because it was dark. We had no electric lights. I don't know how they lighted, but of course they electric lights came in little by little, different locations.
Yeah.
Center came first and like that, you know.
That must have been a big improvement.
We had our milk delivered by Mr. Bartlett from West Newbury. He used to deliver with a horse and wagon.
What else did he deliver? Just milk or butter and eggs, farm produce?
I don't think my mother ever bought it. I never remember any. Then there was a man come around from Newburyport. I don't know his name. He would sell big cookies with a raisin in the middle, and we loved them.
Oh,
And sell cookies and things like that. Cake. My mother did most of the cooking.
Door to door he sold it. Door to door?
Door to door.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the Byfield Tall Hat Club?
Hat Club?
There was do you remember the library when it was first started in town?
Yes, wasn't it well, I don't know if it was the first, but it was up, the Richdale store. I don't go, but is that this side of the house that's empty, Thistlewood House?
Yes.
Well, up there.
It was upstairs.
Upstairs.
Did you go to the library a lot?
I went up there.
You went a lot?
Yeah.
Who were the librarians?
Oh my, you got me.
Did you like to read?
I did like to, but I haven't for quite a while because I had 2 operations on this eye, and what I'm seeing now, I'm seeing with through by the plastic contact lens with a vision in it sewed over my eye.
Oh my! We were told a lot of the houses in Byfield were moved around. That there was a house here, and then they moved it somewhere else. Do you know any of the houses that were moved?
Not around here, not on this street anyway.
Not on this street.
All there was, we used to go down there and skate where the Jones lived.
Yes.
Yes, that was we used to have, there's a meadow there, and it comes up to my wall.
Do you know where Penny Ornery Spring is?
No, my nephew might, but I don't. Because I know my older brother used to go over there for coltsfoot.
Yes.
That's a green egg. You can eat it.
Yes.
Like dandelions.
Yes.
You know?
I've heard that you used to use a lot of herbs.
Well, I don't know as my mother did.
When you got ill, who would take care of you? Who was your doctor?
Well, I remember Dr. Gowan Rogers.
Dr. Rogers. What did he look like, and where was his office?
Well, he had an office at the last of it. At first he didn't. It was where that long apartment house or tenement there, right next to the Gospel Hall, right along there. It's upstairs over the store.
Did you go?
He used to.
And what did his office look like inside?
It was just a plain room. He didn't have me real office, you know. What I mean, the fixtures.
Yeah. What did he look like?
Well, he wasn't too tall a man, and he could talk 6 different languages.
He could talk 6
different languages. They were smart. And he carried a satchel, like, you know.
Did he have a horse and carriage?
I never knew him. He lived, you know, that nice house there down at the end of this North Main Street. There's a house, I think it's got white with red trim, in a new house. Looks nice right on the end. And you turn to go Scotland Road, it's right there.
Oh, down there.
On the left, if you're going down.
Down there?
No. Yeah, left.
So he was your doctor. He was your doctor.
He was then, because there was only a doctor around here.
He was the only doctor. He must have been very popular in town.
Well, because there wasn't so many people as there are now.
And everybody knew each other and took care of each other.
Well, I guess the families took care of their own family, you know. Maybe the neighbors, well, they said years ago the neighbors used to help. But I don't ever remember any coming in. Wasn't any. Only my aunt lived up there.
What about hospital? Was Anna Jakes?
Anna Jakes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yes. They went there.
Do you remember?
There was a men and women's ward. They was there on the first floor.
Oh. Mm-hmm. And was it in its present location?
I think so.
Uh-huh.
I think so.
Do you remember?
I can't remember because I'm not being there.
Do you remember the Pearson elm? We've heard there was a great big elm tree in front of the Pearson house.
Which?
The snuff mill Pearsons.
Do I remember the tree?
Yeah, there was a great big tree we have a picture of.
Mm. Yes, I remember the tree wasn't so open as it is now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There were a lot of big elm trees in Byfield, weren't there?
Yes.
And they've all died.
We had a lot of apple trees, too.
Yes. What were they? Where were they located?
Well, we had one there, right there by the corner of the wall, and we had one out there.
Do you remember the type of apples they were?
Baldwins.
They were Baldwins. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Scotland Road before it was improved?
No.
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 How would you go to Newburyport from here?
By train.
Well, you wouldn't ever use horse and carriage.
We didn't have any. I don't think they had any to hire. I don't know.
Would you go to Newburyport for shopping?
My father did a lot of it, most of it.
What would he buy in Newburyport? Did you ever go with him?
Anything we needed, if it was stock.
Buy in Newburyport.
All our clothing. He'd buy shoes. We'd go get our shoes to try them on down to Thurlow's.
In Newburyport?
In Newburyport.
Uh-huh. Where was Thurlow's located?
Just right near Fowles on State Street.
Uh-huh.
On the right-hand side.
Yeah. Tell me what your mother did when you were little. She had to do all the cooking and canning.
Oh, yes. That there goes down Solomon, and there's some shelves there. I get a little of this and a little of that. Nails, tacks, and things, So she used to have it with a pantry, not a pantry, but a closet. She put pies and things. She wouldn't make one pie. She'd make 8.
And what did she cook on?
Wood.
Wood.
And sometimes coal in the winter.
Yes.
Black stove.
Oh, my. Big vegetable garden?
Yes, my father had a vegetable garden.
Did you have any cows?
1 year she canned 100 and some odd vegetables and jelly and different things.
Did you have any cows or chickens?
We used to have chickens, hens, laid eggs.
Yes. No cows?
No.
Where'd you buy your butter?
Well, I guess it's the store.
Uh-huh. Most everybody had a few chickens.
Yeah. My mother liked the white ones. White leghorns, they used to call them.
Uh-huh.
They had white eggs.
Did you help with the chickens?
Probably.
Did you help with the cooking?
No, she said that she had so much to do that she could do it quicker than she could show us.
Uh-huh.
So we used to watch her. I tell you what we loved best. We liked to get when she frosted the cake, we liked to go by the frosting.
Yes, I think that most children do.
Is this recording everything? We also had to, we didn't fight about it or anything, but weekends we would help our mother like a Saturday morning and clean our room. And of course we had lambs, and she would trim the wick, and we would wash the chimney.
Yes.
Every weekend we did that, and wash around the doorknobs. And my painting's awful, but wash around the doorknobs and the window sashes and everything.
How was the school heated and lit? How was it lit?
Well, they used to have big chunks of wood and put in a pot-belly stove, like.
Yes. And who provided the wood?
I don't know who provided it, but the teacher used to put it in.
Uh-huh. How, on a dark, rainy day, how was the school lit?
That's the question, huh? They didn't have electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't say.
Do you remember?
There must have been lights somehow.
Uh-huh. Do you remember some of the subjects that you were taught?
Oh, yeah. Reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yes.
And language, we called it, and grammar.
Did you have to memorize things?
Yes, every Friday afternoon. The teachers mostly were out of town.
Where did they live?
Oh, Boston way, different places, suburbs of Boston. And they boarded with Mrs. Cheney up on Forest Street. And we were always happy because every Friday they'd come dressed up to go home, you know, with a suitcase or some kind of bag. And suitcase, we called it. And we were happy because we knew she wouldn't keep any of us at school. Get out on time.
So you had a lot of recitations?
Yes. We used to speak a piece. We'd take turns every Friday afternoon, and she'd read a story to us.
Do you remember some of the stories she read to you?
No, I don't remember the stories.
Uh-huh.
I'm awful, huh?
Uh-huh. No, I'm enjoying this.
I know when I'm my first grade, in the first grade, I was a teacher's pet, because I was the smallest one.
Uh-huh.
I was sitting in a lap with a picture.
Did you go to school young?
Well, I suppose. I think we went at 6.
Uh-huh.
I think so.
Do you remember Fatherland Farms when it was really beautiful? Do you remember Fatherland Farms when it was beautiful?
The farms were beautiful.
The Fatherland Farm.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah, when I can't see this.
Describe the farm to me, Fatherland Farm. What did it look like?
Well, it was a long building, and there was a hothouse, big hothouse. Is that there now?
No.
No.
What did they raise in the hothouse?
All kinds of flowers. We used to go down there and buy flowers.
Uh-huh.
Pinks, roses, everything. It was
Must have been just beautiful.
It was. There was I guess there is now a big stone wall.
Yes. They have horses there or cows?
Not then.
Not then.
Just flowers.
Just flowers.
And then someone bought it and they had horses.
They have any vegetables?
Not that I know of.
Uh-huh. Do you remember who bought it?
No.
You don't remember who bought it. Were the trains noisy when they went through town? Did they blow a whistle?
They blew a whistle, yeah. Yeah, you could hear it over here. And, of course, I can hear the fire going. But they were sort of dirty like because you get the cinders, you know, if you had the window up. But we always like to sit on the inside to watch it as it's going along. Because the trees seem to be moving, don't you know, when you're going on a train.
Yes, yes. Did you ride the electric cars very much?
Yes, I worked in George Plummer's store. It's with that was the nicest store in town then.
And where was it?
Then Puritan bought it.
Yes.
No, is it Puritan? No.
Praise?
No. They used to sell furniture.
O'Brien?
O'Brien, that's what I was thinking of. They bought it.
What did you do in that store?
I worked on the hosiery and underwear counter. And George Plummer, he was elderly, and he had a son. He was in the store too. They were nice people. When I went in, he gave me instructions. I was on the hosiery and underwear, and he said, Now, when a customer comes in, he says, you ask them what size, and you show them. They used to have children's stockings, 39 cents a pair or 3 for $1. And he says, you start there, and if they want better or cheaper, they'll tell you.
You'd go from here to Newburyport on the electric...
They had electric cars then, when I was in Plymouth.
What were the electric cars like?
What was it like?
Can you describe riding them?
Well, the first ones were open.
What would you do in the rain and the cold?
Well, I think they had curtains that pulled down, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
On the electric
cars? No, not really. No, I don't.
Do you remember any big events in Byfield that happened in the past?
Well, Memorial Day, I think, would be the biggest.
4th of July wasn't big.
Yes, I mean 4th of July, because the junior order, they used to march out in their uniform, This is years ago, not the last of their being in order, but...
Besides the junior order and the Grange, were there any other organizations in town?
Just not that I know of, only the church.
Was the South Byfield Parish Church at all involved in town affairs?
I don't think so. I don't recall any. Up here, you mean? I don't know.
Did you ever go to town meeting when the town meeting was held down in Middle?
Once.
What was it like?
Well, this is recent years, or not lately, but 30 years ago and better. But I don't stop to think I'm 92. The town meeting, well, they'd have a motion, and some would be in favor and some wouldn't.
Do you remember any of
some put up an argument,
What did it look like inside?
Well,
Cove, north side of Shots. Cove. Yeah, no, that.
Well, you'd know that.
I know. You know that one little tiny stack of hay that's out there by Lee's Bridge? There's a little small one, just a little bit left on a staddle there.
Yeah.
That was Ilse's. Ilse's ran up that side because they're the same family as my family.
Sure.
Shots.
Sure.
That's where the Ilse's come from, the Shots.
Where's
the Shots came from the Ilse's.
Where's Long Point, John? Dick?
Long Point. Is well named. It goes from the Plum Island mainland all the way out to that point.
Okay.
It's very close to the town of Rowley's Newbury line.
Didn't you say you used to hay down there?
Yeah, we used to cut hay there. And
okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that Cardex lot? That sounds interesting.
the Cardex lot, I've only heard it described, the description of the markers of the Cardex lot. My father, Ernest Knight, told me that there was 4 wooden Cardexes. Now, the Cardex is like an old dump cart or a heavy wagon X. They used a wooden X instead of an iron X years ago and slipped a wheel on and and put a wooden key on the outside of it. So there's a few of those old wheels in the museums today. And I have a box.
You got a good idea of what he's talking about.
I think so.
I have a box that was in one of those wheels, and it's about 6 or 7 inches diameter on one end of the box, the inside of the wheel, and it's about 1.5 foot long, and it ran through the hub of the wheel, and it's tapered and down to about 4 inches on the outer end, and that's where the wooden axle of the wagon or cart stuck through, and then they dropped a key in, and that kept the wheel on. There was no nut.
Do you know what he's talking about?
Yes, I think I do now. And it's spelled C-A-R-T.
Yeah, cart. Yeah.
X-E-X.
Cart X. It's an axle.
It's an axle. We know what it
Axle, cart axle.
An axle. See, that's why I was wondering if you know what it was. You know what an axle is on all carts and wagons.
But the way the old, now listen, Ruth, the way the old timers said it probably was just the way he's saying it. And you get the impression it was somebody's name, right? I did that too. And it actually is the description of a point where an axe was put down to mark a corner of a lot, right? It was quite a commonly done.
They drove that whole axle, which was probably 7 or 8 feet long, down into the marsh on the 4 corners.
I understand.
And that marked a man's lot. Now, my father, of course, knew, and all the old-timers back in those days knew the boundaries of a lot of lots, marsh lots. It followed the creeks, but there was no other way of knowing where they were, only from memory of these old-timers that used to cut that hay. And they used to, of course, go out there and mow it by hand with the scythe. Every bit of Plum Island's marshes were mowed with a scythe prior to 1880. They wouldn't let a horse on the marsh. It was sacrilegious to put a horse on the marsh and ruin the marsh.
Yeah, that's a fact.
They'd take 8 or 10 men and go out there and mow beds out in there, and each one of them cutting about 10 feet and in his swath of the scythe, and another one following on his heels, and another one behind him, and so on.
They'd be staggered.
Right across the bed.
They'd be staggered, right?
And they used to say, "Get going there or I'll mow the heels off ye."
Do you remember the halfway house?
Oh, yes. Very well.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, the halfway house was, I was a small child, a young fella at the time, and it had about, I'd say, 8 rooms, and as I remember it, it was part brick and part wood, and we kids used to run ahead when we're going to Knobs with our wagons to cut hay and our equipment, and we'd run ahead so that we could go in and run all up through the rooms in that house, which was abandoned at that time, and that was in probably around 1920 or so, and I guess about 1925 or so it disappeared. They tore it down. But it's set right at the right off of the Plum Island River, the banks of the Plum Island River, where the Federal Wildlife have some buildings now. And it was right on the edge of the mainland.
And Dan Brown told me that people would say above the halfway house or below the halfway house.
It was described halfway down Plum Island.
I mean, it was a place that you would a location for other areas.
Yeah.
And also, he said it had very good well water.
Yeah, we used to water the horses there on the way down.
That's what he said.
Yeah, there was a well, big well, and he'd heist it up with a bucket and water the horses.
That's what he said.
Heist it up with a rope, tied on the handle of a bucket. Yeah.
Well, that was interesting.
And you know the family. Boy, what was the family's name? There used to be a family who lived there when I was real small. And they abandoned it. And that was when it was open to the public.
Richard, how was
Woodman?
Boardman.
Oh, Board.
Boardman's Pond, and that's down on land owned by I guess Dick Walsh owns it, and that's right west of the airport, Newbury Plum Island Airport. And there's a big pond in there, and it's been cleaned out once or twice for irrigational purposes by Dick Walsh.
Did they ever cut ice on that?
No, I don't think so. Quill's Pond was the ice pond in Newbury, Old Town.
Do you remember when that was being used?
Oh, yes. Quill's.
Quills.
Oh, yes. I cut ice there when I was a kid.
Can you describe it to me?
Yeah, there was 3 buildings that were attached to each other on the broad sides of the buildings. All the ends came out together towards the pond, and they had a track that went up from the pond across the front of the buildings. That track could be hoisted or lowered according to how much ice they had in the pond, and how much ice they had in the buildings. And as we start to ice, they cut right up there in the neck of the pond next to the houses. And they had at one time, horses pulled with a grab hook, pulled up like 3 cakes at a time, and they'd fall off the top of a tower with a track run up to the top of it, and down these runs and go by the houses, and men there would switch the cakes into the house, and men inside would push them into place.
How were those houses insulated?
They were insulated with sawdust. Yeah, they had a petition about 6 inches.
We had a ice house.
Yeah, they had a petition about 6 inches thick all around the house, and I guess even including between the houses, because when the house would be empty, that would let the heat through to the next house.
Dick, you had a little ice house on the farm there?
No, not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Do you remember ours?
Many farms
we had one
did.
for a number of years.
Yeah,
I used to play in it.
They had one down to Marston's, and all that ice was pulled up by horse out of the pond up the runway to the ice house, and he had one.
If you were a householder, would you prefer one type of ice over another? Like Quill's Pond ice was better than
I prefer ice that come from a clean pond. And some of them weren't too clean. Yeah, and they used to scrape the snow off them in the winter to enhance the ice to freezing, because snow was an insulator. And they used to keep them scraped with horses in big wide scoops that were about at least 10 feet wide, and a pair of horses, and they'd go all over that pond after every snow. And when the snow got real thick, like a 1.5 feet of snow, more than they could handle, then they'd drill holes and down through with an auger into the water of the pond, and the weight of the snow on the ice the water would come up through and wet all the snow, and they'd use that and let that freeze in as snow ice. They'd do that also when the winter was getting near the end of winter, and they thought they weren't going to get a foot of ice. They liked to get 12 inches of ice, so that when it went up, it was
level.
When it went up, it went under a planer and planed it exactly so many inches thick, every cake. Then they could stack it in the houses beautiful. But some parts of the pond, the ice would be thicker than others.
Did most of those ice houses burn? I know frost burned.
Yeah, quills burned, and they about all of them burned. They used to say the sawdust caused spontaneous combustion, but I think banknotes rubbing together was
and corn cigarettes too, probably.
Sounds like.
Well, you see, the ice business got very poor, and artificial ice was coming in, and that's when all the ice houses burned.
Pity.
Yeah, and Quills used to fill those 3 houses and stack some outside. In fact, sometimes they'd get a second cut in and stack it outside and cover it with hay, salt hay.
Would each one of the ice houses have a special run, or would they be
No,
competitors?
one run right down by all three of them.
I meant commercial deliveries.
Oh,
Like Quills would have the south side and
just like milk customers. They each one had their own customers.
Mm-hmm.
They peddle milk. Other people peddle
you
milk.
probably remember that.
Oh, sure.
Didn't you? When they put the card in the window,
Yeah, 5 pounds, 10 pounds.
the milkman or the iceman would come and give you a card and say, if you don't mind, whenever you need ice or milk,
put
put it in the window.
Quill had a yellow and black card, MFQ. MFQ.
What did Frost have?
I don't know. Frost, I guess.
Probably their own, yeah.
Jack Frost, I knew him.
Uh-huh.
In the ice business.
Interesting. Well, that's very interesting.
Good old days.
Yeah.
And the rubber pad on the back to carry the ice on.
Carry the 10-cent piece of ice.
Things.
10-cent piece of ice, but all he wanted to carry.
Now, each delivery wagon had a different shape, didn't they?
Well, the ice wagons, to my memory, were all the same. Yeah, they were a box wagon, about big as one good-sized horse would want to haul, and they had box sides that come up about 2.5 feet or 3 feet, and then they had a canvas cover like the old prairie schooners, only a little tighter over the top to keep the sun off. And
because I interviewed somebody and they said the butcher carts were all, I think, square, and the bakery wagons had a round top.
And the ice wagon had its shape too. It was a rugged wagon, had a tailboard on it to pull the cake of ice out onto to cut it in pieces, and they did that with an ice axe or an ice pick.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the circus trains?
Yes, very well. They used to come in out there to the siding out there on Parker Street and way out to the main line out by the traffic circle. And I remember when the 101 Ranch come to Newburyport, and I was highway superintendent, and the state engineer come down, and he says, Dick, he says, I want you to stand out there by the town line on Parker Street. And he says, this old state engineer here, his name was Walter Stowe, a very good friend, and he was just joking with me, and he says, I want you to stand out at the town line and stop the circus when it comes through and reaches the line. And he says, and don't let them move until they give you 2 tickets to the circus, one for you and one for me. Well, and he says, because you and I got an awful lot of work to do after that circus comes in. Well, that circus come in Parker Street. It was a tarred road and a very good road. It was an awful hot day, and they must have had 100 or more horses hauling those wagons from the freight cars down Parker Street down to the Plum Island in the area of the airport where the circus was held. And Parker Street, as I said, was a tarred road. It hadn't been tarred too many years, maybe 10 or 15. And that hot day, that tar got soft. And those horses were mammoth big horses. And they'd have like 6 or 8 horses pulling one wagon loaded with tents or the lions or whatever. And they'd have an elephant behind, push him with his head. And they come down through there, and when that circus got down there and back that night, there wasn't a piece of tar road left as big as your hand. It was chopped right up with those long cock shoes that the horses wore to get traction, you know. They had drive clocks that were an inch long or more. And they just dug that road right to pieces.
Did they only stay one day, or was
one
it
day?
1 day?
Yeah, one night.
Do you have any pictures? I really
Saturdays usually they come to Newburyport. That was a good day. Small towns they'd go on a weekday.
Do you have any pictures?
No.
Of what?
Of the circus.
There used to be a man by the name of Beale in Newburyport who was a circus man to begin with, if I remember right, and he collected a great deal of circus memorabilia, including pictures and posters and everything. If you could find, I don't know, but I guess so. If you could ever find where those went to, and they may reside in, the Cushing House. Well, I don't know where, but I'm almost sure they didn't go. Kurt Haley would probably know.
Kurt might have some pictures.
Kurt might have the pictures.
I really like to have some pictures of Plum Island of the
When I was a kid, the circuses used to come over the road sometimes. If they'd been in Ipswich, they'd come by about maybe 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock, a little after daylight. They'd come by our farm, and there'd be 6 horses on a wagon, and still sometimes an elephant pushing if they had a heavy load. And they would, I remember one time I heard this squealing noise, and I went out of the barn, and there was the circus wagons, a couple of them coming, and they used to come dribbling along as fast as they'd get them loaded. They'd send them over the road to Newburyport, and they'd be going through for probably 4 or 5 hours, and get set up for an afternoon show. Of course, the first thing would be the tents, and later the other equipment. And this one was coming through, and I could hear this squealing noise, and I went out. I was a kid. I was probably 12 years old. That was about 1921 or 2, and they, this fella stopped right out front of the house, and the smoke was coming right out of one of the wheels. He had a hot box. And that's when a wheel rubbing on the axle so long without grease enough, the axle gets hot, expands and locks in that wheel, and that wheel won't turn. And he says, "Have you got some water?" And I says, "Sure." And so we had the horse trough, the cow trough in the cow yard there, and he'd come in with a pail and got pails of water and threw them on that wheel to try to free it up. And he couldn't free it up. He says, "Have you got a jack, a wagon jack?" And I says, "Yeah." And I went and got him the wagon jack, an old wooden jack with a wooden handle, curved wooden handle, big jack. We used to use it on hay wagons and dump carts. And so he took the jack out and put it under that wheel, and he pushed down, and he and a fellow with him, and they broke the jack, and I felt terrible.
I think that was pretty heavy.
Yeah, and heavy wagons, too much for that jack. And he finally got the wheel cooled down, and another wagon come along that had a jack, and he got the wheel off, and they put some grease on it and took off. But a hot box was quite a common thing in wagons.
I've heard. Buffalo Bill came through, I heard. Did you see him?
I don't recall whether I went to that show. They had a Wild West show, and I don't recall whether I went to that show or I heard people talk about it. I don't know. Yeah. So I'll be honest and say I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what year it was. If it was, if I was 5 or 6 years old, I saw it. If it was sometime prior.
I've got one of those wheel jacks at home.
You do?
Yeah. I got one. I got that old one that broke.
I got a letter
I repaired it.
How big was yours?
Oh, about this high, Big
I got a letter
about
from
4
out
steps.
in Michigan where a wagon maker had gone out there, and he was jacking up a wagon. He was a wagon maker, and he was working for somebody evidently. And the jack got away from somewhere, and he broke his leg. And his brother sent him, I think, $100. That time, that was a lot of money. Just so he could feed his family, and recuperate, from the broken leg. I don't know whether he ever got over it or not.
The doctor probably charged him $10 to set it and keep him a week in the hospital.
In those days, that was terrible.
I got dragged to the hospital when I was about 14 and broke my ankle. A terrible break. And I was up at the homeopathic hospital. I know I was there for a week, and the bill was $12 for this hospital stay, and the doctor had a bill besides for setting my leg. No X-rays. There wasn't any.
You know,
and it was the best leg I got.
One of the things when I had these eye implants, Dick, to see the difference, I went up to the hospital about 10 o'clock, and they put me into a bed, give me a shot, and I was operated on somewhere between 11 and 12, and I was out of there at 3, and I think the bill was that the hospital sent. Now, this wasn't for the doctor. This wasn't for the anesthesiologist. This was just for the hospital, you know, the operating room and the nurses and upkeep, $2,500. The surgeon for operating on the eye, I would have thought would get the most. He only got $1,600.
Well, I know how they did it in the hospital for that small price when I broke my ankle, because I was on a liquid diet 7 of those 8 days. I had a broken ankle. Now, a liquid diet is not very expensive feed.
No, that's...
Dick, do you remember, is it Silas Little's drive of horses down down High Road?
A dry sign. No, that wasn't Silas Little. That was Ed Francis Little. And they went down to Little Farm down in Little's Lane. He was a horse dealer, and he'd have carloads of horses come in from Iowa and places in the West.
Do you remember?
Oh, yes, well.
Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
How many would there be?
Oh, they'd have maybe a couple of carloads, probably 30 horses, or 40. And I remember the fellow, one man be riding one horse, and he'd have 4 or 5 more on a rope tied to the...
You did? From Brighton. Oh, yeah. I saw it coming from Brighton. When I was living in Medford, I saw that.
That was a dealer's
place. From Brighton, and we finally had one of those old colored fellows, and he finally went to work for us in the riding school out there in West Medford.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Brighton, that's where we used to take our cows to the slaughterhouse.
Why couldn't they find horses around here? Why did you have to go west?
Well, they raised them out there.
I see.
Yeah, my grandfather...
Were these draft horses?
Yes.
Yeah. My grandfather, Bray, he did teaming, and he had a mammoth big wagon. He finally sold it to Silas Little. And it had winches on it to tighten the ropes, and he used to load up loads of... He'd take the 4 white... He had 4 white horses, and he used to like white horses, and he used to buy his horses from the gypsies, the Stanleys that come through and camped in Salisbury. And they'd come up from Pennsylvania or somewhere like that, and they had beautiful horses. And he would always was friendly with them and bought... traded horses, or bought their horses, and then, I don't know, I guess they'd buy some more when they were ready to go back, you know, and they'd stay here for the summer. And and he used to go way up into Dover and up that way to haul hay, and he'd come back and haul it to Gloucester, Beverly, and Salem. That's about as far as he'd go, because that was a one-day haul. Now, he'd leave the house at like 4 o'clock in the morning and head for Dover. He'd get up there, get his load of hay on, and stay overnight, and maybe finish loading it in the morning, and then start out back over the road with 4 horses to Newbury. He'd get home, he'd put his horses up in the barn, that's where I live, and he'd feed the horses for the night and sleep himself, get up in the morning for daylight and head for Gloucester and Beverly. And there was a tremendous demand for hay because of all these people in the cities. There was riding stables because it was the only transportation.
Of course.
And there was riding stables, there was livery stables. And they used to feed those... They liked coarse hay, my father used to tell me, because the horse wouldn't eat so much of it. The fellow that ran the livery stable wanted coarse hay because he was boarding horses, you know.
I understand.
When they'd get the coarse hay, the horse wouldn't eat so much tonnage.
Excuse me, Dick. they're talking about going out to the Knobs and then a thunderstorm coming up, and they went to the Jackman place a mile and a half farther away.
To the south. That was Jackman's was the Cross Farm down at the lower part of and down almost as far as about a mile and a half north of Bar Island Head, the south point.
Seems so I got a picture.
Where is Bar Island Head?
Well, that's in Ipswich.
Oh,
way down.
That's way down.
And the Cross Farm was in Ipswich.
Did you ever?
The fellow that used to wrestle. Who was the wrestler? No, not wrestle. A fellow that worked for Bill Sweeney on a rubbish truck and wagons in Newburyport. Well, anyway, he used to farm down there.
Did you ever ride the Carlotta?
The Carlotta, no. The boat that ran from the wharf here down to the Bluffs and
the yacht club.
The island.
Did they come from off of the Ipswich Yacht Club? Was there a pier?
I don't know where they went. I never rode on it, but I rode on Bill Dole's. He had a boat, and I'd been down on that.
Where did that one go?
That one went from the wharf and went down to Johnny Post, down to what was the island, the first island down there? Grape Island. And then they'd run down to the Bluffs. And
what was the inside of Dole's boat like?
Just a big open boat with a seat all around the edge. And it had a top over a shade on and over the top. And it was I'd say about a 50-footer. It was a good-sized boat.
Bill Dole,
William Dole. He was the one that was police chief for so many years. And he lived up here where Gowdy lives, right above Vern's gas station.
Did he have something to do with the grocery store there?
Dole's, he ran the grocery store.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So that was Dan Dole's brother.
Dan's brother, right.
Yep.
Nat Dole's.
Okay, now
Nat
you get
Dole's
the
uncle.
Yep.
Nat Dole's uncle.
Okay. Yep, right.
And you use it for a pleasure cruise?
Well, people would get down that lived there, and he used to haul supplies to them. And
was the store that he ran still there in your time? Was there a transition there? He didn't run that for a long time, did he?
He was first a plumber owned it, I think. That is, prior to Dole was plumber.
Dole.
And Walter, Walter's family. Walter was in it.
There's the Dole.
Dole,
right.
Nathaniel, postmaster, High Connor Parker, Newbury.
Now look at this. See, here's the Littles. But see, Daniel Lunt was the postmaster there.
Grocery store, Parker, Connor.
And he died, and
there was two stores.
And Nathaniel Dole, the father of William and Dan, became the postmaster, and William became, for a while, Daniel A. Lunt was running it at that time, and then it went to William Dole.
Well, now there was another store on the south corner of Parker Street.
Right, and that was run by
that was a blacksmith shop, a store, and then eventually turned into a blacksmith shop.
Why are there so few pictures of that one?
There is a picture of that one on the south corner with a hand tub, a hand fire engine.
Yeah, but there's so many of the other.
And a wagon. And on the hand tub was a sign that said, and it was to do with an anniversary parade for the anniversary of Newburyport. I don't know what year anniversary of its becoming a city or a town.
Well,
but it said
dates on it.
It said aid on the hand tub. This sign, it said aid to Newburyport, not bounced. We have the Holly WW, and that was the name of the hand tub, the hand fire engine. And it was a bucket tub that they bailed the water into and squirted up on the roof. You know.
I'll give you a little bit of background on that stuff.
Did you get that photograph?
Yes.
Postcard, was it?
No, it was a full-fledged picture,
Yeah.
but not a good one. It was. It's in here.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that is right there, aid to Newburyport.
Yeah, and the date is on here somewhere.
And there's a figurehead right there, ship's figurehead.
1776, and this was 1876.
Now, where was Parker Street? Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
This was built across the street.
And this
they
is
had
all
a fire
decorated with holly leaves and things.
This is what I was trying to get at. You know, somebody made the statement that it was burnt, and it may have burnt in 85 too, but there was a fire in the post office on the corner where Vern Station is in 82.
Well, I know that Harry Jakes told me years ago, Harry come down, and that's Sarah's husband.
Yep.
And he come down, he told me one day, he says, I was a boy when that building burned. He says, I went down there, got up one morning, and went down with a couple of pennies to buy some candy.
Now, what building?
The one on the south side, I understood him to say.
South side?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And, you know, I can't find one newspaper for that period that mentions that.
And that picture there doesn't show where the street is.
Not really, but
there's a gas light there.
But
or a
there's plenty of
one.
maps that indicate it.
There's a kerosene light out front of it.
Yeah,
a
but
street
there's
light.
plenty of maps that show enough of it.
Well, anyway,
I was gonna.
Harry said he went down to get some candy, and there was nothing but a heap of ashes and smoke.
So the fire was the one on the south side. What happened to Dole's?
What happened to Dole's is, as I remember it, it was torn down.
Torn down.
Yeah.
What did it look like?
I remember that very well.
What did it look like inside?
Well, inside there was it was a big open floor, like it could have sometime or other been a hall downstairs. The family lived upstairs, Hyla, and it was petitioned off with kind of petitions half the height of the room.
Yeah.
And it had a hardwood floor, and I know he had a restaurant in there, and he used to serve a little food.
No, who was this, Bill?
That was Hyla.
Hyla.
Yeah.
When did they
Bill
didn't
Dole's,
start?
I remember my father telling about going in there when Bill Dole run it, and my father come down with a horse and wagon, and they were wagering each other. Bill said to my father, he had some oranges, a crate of oranges on the floor. And of course in those days a crate of oranges, 2 cubic feet, one each end held a cubic foot, and they filled them full. And they were quite heavy. I don't know what they weighed, but probably 108 or 10 pounds, crate and all. And Bill Dole he said something about, boy, that's a heavy crate of oranges. My father picked it up, and he says, that ain't so heavy. Well, Bill says, I'll tell you something. He says, if you can carry that home on your shoulder without setting it down, he says, I'll give it to you. And I'll follow you down with your horse and wagon. And so they did. My father threw it on his shoulder, and he walked down, took it right in the house at the corner of Hay Street, which was a mile, and set it on the table, and then drove Bill back with the wagon.
Oh,
that's a good
But
story.
he had to pay double for it if he couldn't carry it home.
I wanna read you while you're here what they had in here. Harry Jakes is telling this story about that store on the southerly corner. He says, when I was a boy, there was a grocery store at the corner of Parker Street where Arthur Page's house now stands. The store was run by Isaac Little and Ed Coleman Little.
Ed Coleman, yeah.
Men and boys gathered there to swap stories and get the neighborhood news. One winter evening, Amos Little father of Johnny Little, who now lives at Parker River, came in with a dirty little bag. He picked out something with his fingers and sprinkled it on the red hot coals in the stove. It was gunpowder, and it sputtered and flamed. He repeated this action again and again for the entertainment of the crowd. Then he said, "Oh, what's the use? Let's have a good show," and he tossed in the bag. The boys and men scrambled out of the store double quick. They couldn't get out quick enough. One old man, Jake Floyd of Floyd's Lane, now Hanover Street, was scared to death. He was sitting on a headless nail keg, and was stuck and couldn't get out. But nothing happened. The bag was a bag of sand with a little gunpowder on top.
Oh, I like that.
I like that. That's that one of your...
Tell me something. Was Harry Jakes Mildred Jakes' brother?
No. Bill Jakes and Harry Jakes, I think, were brothers, and Bill Jakes' daughter was Mildred.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And she had.
And Sarah married Harry. Sarah Ilsley.
Yeah.
That was Edwin Ilsley's daughter.
Yeah.
That's the one that wrote
the corner of Green and Hay Street.
I guess.
What did they sell in Dole's?
Oh, they sold. When Dole run it was groceries and flour and lard and butter and all that kind of stuff. General household commodities and cheese.
But you could order. Did he have some tools on hand too?
I don't know. Shovel? I don't remember.
Seems so. I read that in the directories.
But then later, Tom Randall got it. They used to call him Ponzi Randall. Yeah. He was a trader, car trader, pretty sharp one. Yeah. I guess that's where the name Ponzi come. He could make money like old Ponzi did in the stock market. And he used to have a couple of one-armed bandits in there.
Oh,
but they had some kind of slugs that they used to buy to put in them to win candy bars. That's why he could make money. He knew how to do it. Yeah. Well, they one time, something I won't forget it now.
We were talking about the stores, were we? And that was triggered something in your memory?
Yeah, I forgot.
Ponzi
Randall, yeah.
And the one-armed
bandit. That was Judge Randall's son. Judge Randall down there across from me.
See, in 1849, Dick, there was no stores listed, at least in the directories, and none in 50 or 51. These are in the Newburyport Public Library. But in 1854, there was a Daniel Lunt, grocer, High, corner of Parker and house at High.
I don't know.
And there was no Isaac W. Little given at that time. But in 1856, I found Isaac W. Little, a farmer, at a High Road, and he was in town affairs. But Lunt Daniel was a grocer at High Street in 56. He was grocer in 1858. Isaac W. was given as a farmer. In 1860, the same. In 1865, Lunt was still a grocer, and 1866, no Dan Lunt was registered in the directories. Stephen Ilsley was in right there handy, though. I noted that because he was an Ilsley. And as we get up there a little farther, we find by 18, seems so here somewhere, we get into an area where Isaac had that store. In 73, he certainly had it. Isaac W. Little and E.C., Isaac W. and E.C. Little, grocers, Parker Street, corner of High and Upper Green. Eben Little Jr. was a salesman down on Purchase Street, 45 Purchase. And I'm coming to why I said that, because by 1874, Eben Little Jr. was running that store at the corner of High and Park, for evidently Isaac W. And he run it till 1882, or 1880, when by 1882 he's gone on as a foreman for one of the shoe factories uptown. So there was, there's this transition, and at one time the two stores existed on both corners, and Daniel Lint went back into the business and had the post office by 1882 because he's putting in a bill to the government for the fire that occurred in the post office.
This is the one on the south side?
No, that's the one on the north side. Okay. There was a post office also and the one on the south side prior to that. So what I think happened was that they lost their post office to Dan Lunt. Probably a political thing, I don't know. And Dan figured, well, might be profitable between the post office and the store, so he probably started up again, where Vern was. And the other store, you're saying that he said that burned, right? On the south corner?
South corner, Harry Jakes, told me that.
So it may be that both the fire occurred at the same time and they burnt part of both stores, and there was enough fire involvement with both stores, but maybe, only the post office was damaged to some extent. But you don't know, because the newspapers for that period of time, at least in 82, when I get the indication, there's a definite date given in that newspaper article in 84 about the paying of that bill. So that I know that, I think it was in April of 82, and it gave a date, a day of the month in 82. So we know that a fire had to occur around that time. But when I went to look for the newspapers, I couldn't find. For 6 months, Newburyport had no newspapers, or at least they're missing. Salem, I had 2 newspapers at the Boston Public Library. Neither one of them had carried the article, and there was missing papers, a missing paper for around that date in every case, both in Salem and Boston. I couldn't find one of them that didn't have one paper missing at that point in time, as if all the papers had been lifted to take and thwart me.
One thing people might have explained to you for this history that you're writing is how they used to open the roads up with horses and with a log under the hay sled runners, through the runners.
But how did you
dragged it down?
How did you break ahead if it was quite deep?
They'd go in and shovel
in front of the horse.
Break it down, and the horses could get 4 horses. 2 of them pulled the sled, and the other 2 broke a path. That was about it.
I remember when I was a kid, and I lived down on the Massachusetts border, almost into Woonsocket, and we had a tremendous storm. They had the old Mack trucks coming up the highway, and they got stuck. They couldn't get by the drifts. Well, anyway, after maybe there was more than one day, the kids in the neighborhood come down and got me. I was only probably preschool age, but might have been in the 1st grade. We took a walk down this road, and Dick knows what I'm talking about. We got to a snowdrift, and as we came along, we were walking on top. The snow was hard enough to do that for us kids, and we came to a place where you couldn't see anybody, but when you got up to it, here was about 4 men down there shoveling a path through the road to try to open that thing.
I was probably one of them as a kid. I used to go out there and shovel on the high road, and they used to give us, kids 25 cents an hour or something like that.
People would have different concessions, like up in Byfield there'd be somebody in sections.
They were what they call highway surveyors, and there was about, probably a dozen or 15 of them appointed every year in the town. My father was one, and he had High Road and Hay Street over as far as Lee's Bridge or something. I know he had the Lee's Bridge section because he took some of the ledge off there at Lee's Bridge where it's the road. There was a bad curve. And they'd take their men when farmers, they had a couple of men working for them. And in certain times of the year when they weren't busy, they could spare them men and they'd work them for the town. You look in the town records, you can see where so-and-so, like Ernie Knight and 2 men, it's so much an hour, 10 cents an hour or something like that.
Do you remember any of the particular very bad storms in town?
Gosh, yes. I remember some when we couldn't reach the top of the snowdrift to even knock it down. And over in the old Rowley Road, boy, that used to blow in there and terrible deep. But, there was open fields in those days. They don't do that today because everything is either houses or brush.
Yeah.
All the pastures are grown up.
Yeah.
These open pastures and hay fields for half a mile, that snow would blow if it rained. If it snowed 3 inches, it would blow that for 2 miles to the next